And Winnie and I are here today uh, to see what there may be that we want to talk about. So, welcome anybody that's listening in. And Winnie, do you have something that's on your mind that you want to talk about?
Okay. Yeah, no, I said I was hoping questions will come up after we've heard from heaven's side. Are the angels coming in today?
All right, you just want to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
Okay, we get.
Oh, did you notice my shirt?
Oh, that's lovely. Let me see. Oh, how lovely is that? Did you just have them make it for you?
Yep.
Wow, very nice. Thank you. Let me see if we have, who might we have here today? One, one and one is two. And two and two are four. And four are eight. And eight are 16. And so the multiplicity of the simplicity of one and one is the trust on the fun nature of growth, you see. So when you go to your garden, Stephanie, and you see a plant that has two little leaves growing on a stem, you say, well, there it is today. There it is today. It is ready to grow. And then two more leaves will grow, and they will keep growing until you have a big bush, you see. And you just have to trust on those two little leaves, don't you? And the leaves are the one who believes in God, you see. He believes that God will multiply his blessings. For you and me are the trust on God, you see. This is hand in glove. It is the trust on God above. Because when you trust on the hand in glove, that's like saying that you trust on being in the Garden of Eden, you see, because you trust that that little plant with two little leaves will eventually give you what you need to feed yourself and your family, right? I do. I was able to grab some leaves, some lettuce leaves today to chew on, but that was about it. But my peas are all in bloom, and the strawberries are already little hard berries. This is how it will be when you see your garden thrive. You will see your garden thrive because of the trust on God, you see. So this is Gadabout energy. Gadabout energy is the trust that you will still be here tomorrow. And you will be a little different tomorrow. And you'll be a little different the next day. And a little different the day after that. And the question is, what will you be? What will you become? Will you become the healthy plant that has healthy leaves and eventually will produce the fruit and the vegetables that will feed yourself and others, see? Because When you trust on God, you see, you trust on multiplicity. You trust that God will multiply his blessings for you, that God will trust on you and give you something so powerful that you will be rewarded for eternity. When you and I see eye to eye, we become the trust on love, you see. My name is James Buchanan. Is that what you said? Yes. Make me proud. Tell me you know who I am. You know James Buchanan? You're muted.
Nope, the name Buchanan sounds familiar, but not James Buchanan.
Which Buchanan?
Don't know James
What
Buchanan.
what
Maybe
Buchanan sounds familiar to you?
Patrick, the one that ran for president.
What was his first name?
I thought it was Patrick.
Hold on. Let me look it up so we're not too stupid. Okay. Just trying to pause it. Okay, I feel very stupid, President Buchanan, because I knew there was a president named Buchanan, but I couldn't be positive. I couldn't remember if I was just imagining that your first name was James or not. So thank you for showing
Well,
up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't jump up and say, hey, President Buchanan is here.
well, I feel informed. I just learned something new today.
The President Buchanan was the president before Abraham Lincoln,
Okay.
correct? Yes. And you were a one-term president? Yes, unfortunately for me, but fortunately for the country. And now I want to say that I am here to play because I learned a lot back in the day. And one of the things I learned is that you can sell your soul to the company store and they will not restore it to you. They will only give you bits and pieces of it. And they will say, here, take it away, because they want you to think that they're there to get you to drink from the ambrosia of the gods, you see, because they took away your soul when they told you you were born in the original sin. They took away your soul, you see. They told you you were flawed, that God made you flawed because he flogged you, because your ancestor ate an apple that he said was forbidden. And that is the biggest horseshit you'll ever hear. And if you believe it, my dear, then you'll have to hear me out. Okay? Okay, I'm still a little embarrassed, President Buchanan, that I did not know your first name. I wasn't positive of it. Well, it's been a while, so you're forgiven. But I have not given up on humanity, and I'm
Good.
not giving up on the USA
Thank you.
because I want to help you to understand something, Stephanie and Winnie, too. I want you to understand that many people will not have a clue what I'm doing here. They won't have a clue why I would come to you and say to you what I'm going to say. Because back in my day, you see, I wasn't exactly a prolific speaker of the nature of reality. I was more about the case of no way, case, you're not gonna say that, are you? The case of beer I held dear. But I did like to drink, my dear. I did like a drink. And I didn't really drink beer like you do today, but I just had to make it rhyme. But I did like a drink in my parlor. And I would say, come here, my dear, and share a drink with me. And my friend and brother would come and say, hey, let's have a drink today. And I didn't tell you that my friend and brother, you see, was the man who came to you before. Okay, this is vaguely ringing a bell. The man who came to you was named Man, you remember? Horace Mann, Horace Mann, Horace Mann was a friend of mine. And I was a friend of his because his biz, you see, was to restore the trust on history. Because it was very important to him to standardize education in the USA in order to make all of the citizens informed, you see, because he thought an informed electorate would form a more perfect nation, you see.
Mhm.
And that is the way it seemed to me.
Yep.
However, although I did endeavor to help him, you see, because he helped me to see his rationale that the more educated people were in the USA, the more they would trust on their capacity to understand the history of the new nation, because it was still fairly new at that time, and how to ensure that it would not pass away. Because, of course, an illiterate citizenry who cannot even read a paper cannot decide for themselves who to vote for. And so they have to trust on those who get up and say, hey, vote for this guy today, vote for this guy. But if they could read, they could get more information, you see, from others outside their community. And they would get a more cosmopolitan point of view, you might say. However, what we did not know was that it doesn't have that much to do with the information you have. It has to do with the ones you knew who trusted on you to be able to figure it out for yourself. And so I've come to say, and I know I'm not the first president to bend your ear in this way, that the USA will pass away if the Trumpers have their way, because they want to trump the ones who trust on love, you see. And they want to trump the ones who trust on the history of the USA. I was listening today when Archangel Gabriel came to say that the Fifth Amendment must never pass away, because the Fifth Amendment protects you from the extravagances of the dark energy of the cart before the horse, Stephanie, cart before the horse. So let me take that back and say it protects you from the people with the steeple, period. It protects you from the people with the steeple who would torture you in order to get you to say that you can't think for yourself, that you have to be a robot, you see. And so the problem with standardized education, you see, is that it only presents one point of view. And it requires those who are standardized to bear the standards that were handed to them. And the ones who say, no, I won't play that way, have to run away and say, I just can't accept what you say today. I just can't accept what you say today. And so when they are fed a steady diet of what they read in their textbooks, you see, all across the USA, and forced to regurgitate it for their tests, they are deprived of the ability to understand their own history. They're deprived of the ability to know who I am, because they don't really give a shit, do they? I would say that's true, President Buchanan. They don't give a shit. The only ones who maybe give a shit are the ones who make history. They're, become history professors or something. Well, the knell of the bell, you see, is the trust on a fabulous reunion. Because you see, I'm here today. And you can hear what I say, because although I've been able to play in a different way in other lifetimes, I can still put on this costume and remember my life in that day when people would say, hey, we can't play in the same old way. We can't trust on slavery, you see. We have to get rid of it. And others would say, well, that isn't going to work for us today. We need those damn slaves to pick that cotton, you see. And we can't do it ourselves. We sure can't afford to pay for somebody to do it. And so if you got a better plan, you better tell us quick. And we tried. We tried with the pride of those who thought they could hide their bitterness from each other. But we all knew that we had a bitter pill to swallow. And it came true. And I'm telling you today that the blood that was spilled on the battlefields that day when the bugles would sound and the cavalry would charge and the foot soldiers would get swept away, is the knell of the bell for the ones who would sell the USA to the highest bidder, you see. We thought it was all over. Once upon a time, we thought America would be united, you see. However, it's a sad day for America today. It's a sad day for the USA. It's a sad day when nearly half the people in the USA would give it away and say, it doesn't matter to us. We don't need all those freedoms, you see, because we'll kill anybody who opposes us, you see. We'll just mow them down and we'll say, how dare you tell us what to do? Because we're the ones who don't give a shit about you. We don't give a shit about you. We don't give a shit about you, James Buchanan. We don't give a shit about Abraham Lincoln. We don't give a shit about the ones who made America great, you see, because we are the ones who are going to destroy it with our hatred for others, you see. I'm not telling you this just to get you riled up. I'm not telling you this because I miss the way the people did say, hey, everybody, give a hand for the new president of the USA. Yes, I had my day. And yes, I got my way for a little bit. But I had to bow out of the theater, you see, because I let my pride get in the way of the opportunity to help people see that we could resolve the problems without having to fire a shot, you see. But I was prideful, you see, because I thought I had a handle on it. I thought I could figure it out, you see, because I thought that when they said, you're the president of the USA, that people would listen to me that day. I thought they would care. I thought they would pull together. And I was a fool. I was a damned fool that day. And they did say, hey, get out of our way, old man, because you haven't got anything good to say. And we're going to find somebody who does. And I said, okay, do it your way then. Do it your way. But I will pray for the USA. I will pray that one day we will be able to sit down at the same table as friends and neighbors and say, hooray, for the ability to talk out our problems today and figure out a solution without having to send our children to die on the battlefields in our own country. And now I have to tell you that I have read the writing on the wall, and the wall will fall. The wall will fall. Because all that will be left, you see, of the USA is a small group of people who will say, we are here today to dedicate ourselves to a more perfect union where we will be friends and neighbors, and we will not kill each other just to be the golden idol, you see. We'll figure it out together. We'll figure it out together. And that small group of people is going to be the ones who will save the USA. They will save the USA because they will say, this document, the United States Constitution, was one of the most perfect examples of a diverse group of people coming together and sitting down at the table to talk, go through many, many long hours and many long nights in order to find a solution to their problems, you see. And the ones who have no clue about their history are the ones who had the standardized education, you see, because they became robotic. They're just robots who repeat what they're told to repeat by their handlers, you see. And their handlers can differ. The ones on the Trump train are mostly handled by their churches, you see. And the ones on the bump train, as Raphael said, are the ones who handlers are the institutions of higher learning. I should say the so-called institutions of higher learning, because they are institutions that say, you have to do it our way. You have to do it our way. If you want this diploma, dear, you got to do it our way. You can't play a different way. And so there grew up a bunch of people who said, there is no truth. There is no truth. Because they tell us that the Bible is true. And then we go to school and they tell us that it's not true. It's all just a myth. But they can't think for themselves, you see. They can't think for themselves. So the ones in the institutions of higher education just say what they're required to say to get their diploma that day. And then they get their grants to do whatever they need to do. I am not here to denigrate anyone. However, the ones who are free, you see, to think for themselves are gathering together so they can feather their nest in a new way. And your little group is like the little plant that comes up out of the soil. And it has two leaves, you see, but those leaves will multiply until it's a big bush and it can feed the family. And so the family of man, you see, is the family that my good friend Horace Mann did foresee, that one day would be so well educated that they could think for themselves and not be led by the nose just because they are so angry that they can't be the king of the hill, that they will kill anyone who tells them otherwise. And so a great division arose in the USA between those who trusted on science, you see, and those who trusted on the Bible. And this great division has severed the unity of this nation because there were only two choices, you see. Either you discarded God completely so you could trust on science, or you discarded science completely so you could trust on conspiracy theories because you had no clue that the truth is something that can be known. And so you just say, we can trust on anything today if it makes us feel better. We can trust on anything that makes us feel better, and we feel better if we believe there's a villain out there that's trying to poison us with a COVID vaccine, or if there are aliens who are reptilian race that has poisoned the water or whatever to make us turn us into zombies. Whatever the villain, it doesn't matter, you see, because it's always the devil inside of you. It's always the devil inside of you. If you can't look another in the face and say, hey, I love you today, now tell me what you have to say, and they look at you and say, hey, I love you today, here's what I have to say, and then you repeat this process over and over again. This is the multiplicity of those who trust on God energy, that they will grow by leaps and bounds because they trust on the source energy. Like saying they trust on the fresh water and not the sewage that spews from the churches and through the halls of higher learning. And so I want to tell you today that you too have carved out a way to save the USA because you trust on each other. You trust on each other and you both trust on God, you see. And you trust that you will grow and that your little community will grow so that one day I will come back to say, hooray, hooray for the USA. Thank God that you are here today. Thank God for you, Stephanie, and thank you for Winnie. And thank you for the others in this little group who had the courage and the dignity to show up. Many people talk about showing up for life, you see, and they hide away and they say, oh, I can't show up there today because they might cause me to think, and I would have to think for myself. And I don't want to think for myself. So, Winnie, do you feel like Stephanie is trying to convince you not to think for yourself?
No, I do not.
Do you think I am?
No, I do not.
Because that would be the opposite of what we want you to do.
No.
We want you to be an original with original ideas to share. And it doesn't have to be something so complex as a new theory of thermonuclear power or something. It only needs to be your perceptions, you see. What you see, what you hear, what you think, and how you plan to do something. So others can say, thank you for sharing that with me. Now I want to see what I could do. So back in my day, if the people did say, well, we need the labors of the slaves, and even though we are knaves because we pretend that we trust on God, you see, but really we only trust on the devil because we treat them as if they were beasts of burden for us, you see, and we try to convince them that they should give up their faith in God and become Christians, you see, just so they will know that God wants them to be beasts of burdens, you see. And so they can't think for themselves. If those people had sat down to say, hey, we want to figure this out too, because it doesn't make any sense for one man to own another. It does not make any sense. But the problem is, you see, if we give up our slaves, we'll have to give up our fine homes and our fine china because we won't have anyone to pick the cotton or plant the seeds or the crops, you see. Who's going to dry the tobacco? Who's going to take care of the vegetable garden? Who's going to cook for us? We are helpless, you see. We need our slaves to take care of us. And if we didn't have them, we couldn't be the golden idol today. We couldn't be the golden idol. So the more slaves you had, the more gold you had, you see, in the estimation of your fellow planters. It was a way of saying, I'm better than you. I'm better than you because I have more slaves. How crazy is that? How upside down is that? And the people today who follow Trump have not a clue.
No.
And the rest of the nation might have a clue, but they cannot articulate it in a thoughtful way because their brains have gone away. Their brains have taken a vacation, you see, because they're no longer necessary, because all they have to do is push a button and they can get AI to say something for them, you see. They can get on Facebook or some other platform on the internet and they can just copy and paste. They don't even have to talk. They don't have to have an original thought, you see. They just have to say, look at me, look at me. I've got the best posts of everybody because I swipe them from everybody else who has a lot of followers, you see. And I make up a lot of shit about different people and I spew it all over the internet because we don't trust on the truth, you see. We just trust on how many likes we can get and how many followers we can get. And this is the decline of the mind of the people that Horace Mann feared, that they would just rot away because their brains cells were occupied with raising a crop for their children, you see, and they had to train their children to be farmers like them and not to be writers or readers or poets, you see. And I have to tell you that I think had we left it the way it was, it might have been better for America because at least the people would have known how to live with nature and not destroyed themselves in the rising sea. But that's all water under the bridge now because we always have to go from where we are. We always have to go from where we are, which doesn't mean we can't learn from history. Because, of course, as you know, our history is our stories because we all were present in those days in one way or another. And we all had to experience life from a different perspective over and over and over again. However, those people who trust that they only have one life to live cannot learn from their own history. They can't say, well, in my last life, I was this or that. In the life before that, I was this and that. They have no clue. And therefore, they don't know what to do other than sit and stew in the slough that they created. So now I have lectured you for a bit here, and I know that you knew who I was, Stephanie. I know that you knew it the minute I said it, but you didn't want to say it for fear that others might hear you say, hey, James Buchanan is here today, And then you'd have egg on your face if my first name wasn't James, you see, because you're so afraid that you'll get it wrong, even though it's not your song. It's not your song, dear, it's mine. And it is the song of the people who come here and say, hey, I have something to say. And all you have to do, Steph, is trust on us that we're here because we love you. And you hear us because you love us. And that is the nature of love, you see, that it doesn't put up any barriers. It doesn't say, I'll only love you if you say what I want you to say. But as it happens, when we take down the barriers, we find that everything we say is received in a happy way. Because when we take down the barriers, you see, the ego is no longer in control. That energy will flow and it will grow and it will multiply. And East and West Eco Village will become the hubcap, you might say, of the wheels that will turn and turn and turn. And they will churn the earth, you see, as they plant the seeds of the future generations who will grow up being able to think for themselves because they won't have a standardized education, you see, where they all have to read the same crap and spit it back as fast as they can and then forget it because they don't remember it. I hear complaints all the time. When I connect with somebody on earth, I hear them say, hey, why do we have to learn algebra today? Why don't we learn this? Why don't we learn this? Why do we have to read all those old poets, you see? Why do we have to do this? Why don't we just learn how to sit on our asses and engage in the clashes of the people who hate each other, you see? Why don't we go out on the field and get our swords out and learn to kill each other? Because isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what it's all about? And if you read history, you might think it is. You might think that's what it is about. Because the people with the steeple and the people with the axe to grind have been grinding it on the heads of those who just wanted to be free of anxiety and hang out with their friends and trust on God, you see. But now here we are, aren't we? Here we are in this particular stage of evolution. And what was said before in the messages you receive from the angels, you see that evolution is not a matter of competition. It is not survival of the fittest, you see. It is the process of cooperation. And if you can't find anyone who will cooperate with you, you can't evolve. You cannot evolve. All you can do is revolve on the karmic wheel. But when you find those who can cooperate, that means operate as a community that trusts on each other and listens and says, how shall we solve this problem today? We love you, you love us, and we're going to work on it. You see, we're not going to shed blood over our egos, you see. We're not going to have to find a devil projected on a screen that we have to shoot down, you see. We're just going to trust on love. Now, I'm going to ask you, either of you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Well, thank you, President Buchanan. As you were speaking and I'm listening, thinking about history, I was wondering about the burning of books that they're doing today. I know in Germany they were burning of books, and they're doing it here today. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
What do you have to say about it, Winnie?
I mean, we cannot, the present is very important, but so is history. At least from listening to you, history is also important for us to be able to move forward, go into the future. And so burning of books is like trying to erase history. And the way I see it is you can only do that if you're afraid of something. You want to hide something. And so how can we change that?
Well, assume that you are sitting with a friend who has said to you, well, we got to burn these books today. And it might not be your friend for long, but what would you say?
Well, I would ask why.
Because they're corrupting children, you see. We can't let children be corrupted.
I would ask, what about the books that is corrupting to children?
Haven't you read it? Haven't you heard what my preacher said? That this book is causing children to turn against God, you see, and think that God didn't create them a boy or girl, and they can choose for themselves, you see. So we got to burn it so those children don't get confused.
I would ask them if they truly believe that.
Well, you're talking to somebody who does, who just said it. Pretend it's your friend.
They're getting this information from the church. Is that something they believe within themselves?
What do you mean, who they? Who is they?
This friend of mine, the one that's talking to me, I would ask them if they truly believe this, or
Well,
they
just
just
talk to them. Talk to them as if that they're here. Talk to them as if I'm that person.
okay. So you're burning these books because you don't want your children to read these books because you think it's going to influence them negatively. And you say this is because your church says that. But I'm asking you, have you read the books, and do you believe that the books will ruin your children, or that this information is something that your children should not know?
No, I haven't read that book. I wouldn't read it. Yuck. I wouldn't read a book like that. I trust my pastor and the book committee in my church that says we need to burn this book. So why would I read something that is so horrible it needs to be burned?
So you give all your power to the church. You're not trying to think for yourself just to find out exactly what's in the book.
Now, F you. Of course I'm trusting on my pastor. He has the truth. He's the one that's been studying the Bible. He knows what it says.
Okay. At this point, I don't know that you and I have anything to talk about because I have read these books and they're very good in the information. What's in the book is really very important for the children to learn, because if they don't know how can they avoid making their own mistakes?
Well, clearly you are one of them. Clearly, you are very, very confused. If you don't trust on the Bible, then you are one of them. You're one of the confused people, and I can see why we need to elect Trump today so we can save the USA.
Well, all I can say to you is good luck with that.
I'll put you in my prayers.
I can pray for myself.
Yes, I'll put you in my prayers.
Yeah.
What would you say, President Buchanan, to someone who said, I'll put you in my prayers? Putting a mirror in front of you, dear. Say it again. Good answer, President Buchanan. That is a great answer. So I would say, that's just me here, Steph. I would say what you've learned, Winnie, is you can't talk to them because they can't think for themselves. So how can you talk to somebody that can't think for themselves? I think what they're trying to say is they've already made their choices and there's no hope anymore for them. You know, I mean, you talk to them if they had anything, any ability to engage with you in a conversation and say, let me hear your other point of view, then you might be able to come to some kind of conclusion. But that's why there has to be the third option, and there has to be a time of separation when those who can understand each other and talk to each other in a way where they can actually think and use logic um, can work toward a solution that is satisfactory to the community and to God, because after all, it is God that has it in hand. And so if you burn the books, that you don't like, I guess you could expect that all those Bibles are going to go up in fire.
Yeah.
What do you think, President Buchanan? Stephanie, it sounds like you have finally accepted your reality, which is that you simply have to go away with your friends and live in peace and harmony because they have selected their own fate, and you have to let them have their own fate. And if you receive what you give, which is the lesson that they were supposed to learn in their churches but didn't, then if they burn the books, who's going to get burned, you see? Who's going to get burned? Well, I would say they're going to get burned. That is correct. They're going to burn up in the earth changes that are coming because the date for the changes is upon us, you see. This is the time when those who can rhyme heaven and earth will just go away. They will climb the mountain, you see, and they will say, well, don't look down anymore because we just have to create our own community because we cannot trust on those who cannot trust on us, you see. They cannot trust on us enough to say, well, maybe I could try to see it a different way. And so let's both try to see it a different way and see if we can get to a different point of view. So for you, it's time to move on, right? I think it is, President Buchanan. I've kind of got there with the angels, is that it's time to move on. And The seventh seal has been opened. And that's what they've been trusting on, but they don't even understand it. They don't even understand what that means. Of course, they've gotten a very warped version of it, but so what about you, President Buchanan? What do you need? Well, good question, dear. I think what I need is to be heard by you and by Winnie too, and by those who will not run away, because I did say that I can talk through you, and I talk to you, because when we talk through you, we also talk to you, because we are part of the group, you see. We're part of those members of humanity who are picking the third option. We are not here to support anarchy. We're not here to support laying down and letting others walk over you. We're not here to feel guilty or ashamed that we have a higher point of view. We're here to do what we do and say what we say and be who we are in a new way. So I'm here to talk to you because I trust on you. Trust on you, Stephanie. I trust on you, Winnie. I trust on you to love me, no matter what my politics was, because my political point of view was only a trust on the golden idol, you see. I just sold my soul to the highest bidder, the way we do when we want to prove that we are the only one fit for the job. And the job, you see, is to overcome our mendacity, our trust that we are a body, and accept that every one of us is fit for the job. Every one of us is fit for the job, and the only job, drink, burping. And my only job is not to sob and say, oh, poor me, poor me. I was beset by the devil, you see. They took away my capacity to think for myself. Oh, poor me, poor me. And so don't sob. Just get down to work and say, the ones who can play will play with you, and the ones who would harm you will go away. And that is why the group has to understand that nobody can become part of the group unless they are harmless, you see. They can't hold on to that old resentment from way back when they felt inferior to the ones who could learn quicker than them, spout it out quicker, and then spend their time thinking for themselves, you see. Those are the ones who just got by, didn't they? They just did what they had to get by. And then they said, I will not lie. I will not lie here and let you walk all over me. I will stand up and I will say, hey, I don't have to play your way. I can think for myself because God made me that way. And in fact, God thinks with me because we talk to each other each day. And I say, what a nice day today, God. And God says, I'm glad you like it, honey. I'll give you another one. Is there anything you didn't like today? Well, I didn't like that my stove didn't work and it was kind of cold today. Well, tell you what, I'll help you get it fixed. So I'll pull on the string of one of my other children you see and ask them to come and help you get it going again. And in the community where all the strings to God are straight, you see, and they aren't tangled up. And then God can work through the entire community because they will work cooperatively and not competitively. There isn't somebody that comes and says, oh, your stove doesn't work. Tough shit. Because that means if you freeze to death, I'm going to get some of your land, you see, because we have to be competitive and we have to step on each other's back. And we have to go to a church where they say, we're the golden idols today. All the others who don't sit in their pew and swallow the shit we feed them will have to go to hell, you see. But the problem is the people who are sitting in the pews are already in hell. They're already in hell and they're trying to drag other people there with them. And the one who says, I am free, I can think for myself, is in heaven, you see. And they spend their time trying to find the other ones who want to come and play in heaven, you see, and not just hang out in hell. And sometimes it can be pretty difficult when so few have the ability to think for themselves because they were subjected to the standardized education, you see. So I've had a talk with Horace Mann about this, and he says that he already talked to you, Stephanie, about it. And he came to see that when he went to sea, he was not a seaman, you see, because this was a story that confounded Stephanie because she researched everything. And he told her that he enlisted in the merchant marine, which was what young boys did when they wanted to get off the farm. But he wasn't qualified, you see, because he was kind of asthmatic or something. And she said, well, I researched that, Mr. Mann, and I can't find any record of that. And he said, well, do you trust on me? And she said, well, I trust on everything else you've told me because it all checks out. But I don't know about that part. And so he's here to say, well, sometimes there's a little dark patch in our history where we hide away our history, you see, where we don't want to admit that we were a failure and we couldn't pass muster. And I failed to handle my first assignment, you see. And they ditched me and said, well, you're not cut out for this, are you? And I said, well, I guess not. And so I had to become an educator, you see, because I wasn't cut out to be a seaman. And so I have to be pretty honest here when I say that President Buchanan was the one who helped me to see that eventually we could create a model society. And the model society didn't really match up with our expectations, you see. So we had to scrap that model. And I'd like to model a new version for humanity. And the new version, you see, would be a schoolroom where we sat down and said, hey, look at what I read. What do you guys think about it? And someone else would say, well, I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me. And we'd talk about it and we'd share our experiences. And that's exactly what you tried to do in your school, isn't it, Stephanie? You tried to help the children to see that they could learn to think for themselves. They didn't have to just swallow all the shit that was fed. And they didn't have to reject any part of reality just because it wasn't included in the textbook, you see.
Mhm.
Or it might be confused with religion, you see. You just said, talk about it and think about it. And let's check your experience in reality against what you read and hear from others, you see. And maybe we'll get some new insights. And a lot of those kids did get new insights. But it couldn't be because the powers that be do not want the populace to think for themselves because they can't think for themselves. They can't think for themselves, you see, because they have too many handlers. The way society has developed is everybody has to be a round peg in a round hole, and the square pegs are told to go away. And sometimes that's the best way to play, because I was a square peg in a round hole when I tried to go to sea, you see, and it was the best thing that happened to me. So let's just keep playing along because there's no mistakes, you see. There's no mistakes in reality. God doesn't make mistakes. And I'm here to say that I like it that way.
Me too. Mm. I didn't get the name. Is it Horseman?
Horace Mann,
Oh,
Horacemann, I
okay,
think.
Horseman. Okay,
Hold on a minute.
okay, that's what I've
I'll
said.
just repeat that. Real and Steel. This is Thomas. And I was thinking about it, Stephanie, that you were so careful about everything you say, that you want to check it and double check it and make sure that the pieces all fit together, because that is important to you. It's not so important to the people who listen to you, but it's very, very important to you that you not mislead anyone. And so, one of the things I want to say is that when you research everything to see if you can verify what we say in the historical records, sometimes you have to accept that not everything gets into the records that survive through the years. And that was the case with Horace Mann. And you'd probably have to dig to find out what kind of relationship Horace Mann had with Buchanan, but I think you would find it. Although they had some differences of opinion on things, they agreed on others. And so the lowdown character of the man who says he had to play his hand the way he did is the trust on having to play the game, you see. And I'm as guilty as Buchanan was of having to play the game of politics. Because even though in my day it was just a few of us that were gathered together one day to say, hey, we got to find another way. We got to find another way. If we don't, we're doomed. Because when the British go away, or the English in that day go away, then there will be a pretty price to pay. There will be a pretty price to pay because we won't have any protection from the French, you see, and we won't have any protection from the Indians. who might gather together and come and slaughter us all because we couldn't escape the juggernaut that was the limitations of the colonies in that day. So, of course, when I had the chance to expand the property holdings of the USA, I didn't even hesitate because I remembered the day when you did say to me, you said, Thomas, if they kill us all, maybe it will be the last time that I will ever see you again because I might have to go away if you do what they say and stay your hand. So if you don't stand up and be a man, if you don't stand up and do what your heart tells you to, then who will do it? Who will do it? And today, I'm proud to say that Sally had to come back another day to say, if I don't stand up and do it, who will do it? Who will do it? If I don't stand up and do it, who will do it? And now we're even, you see, because we're even Stephen. And Steve is here to say that he wants to play his hand as well because he has a lot to say. So go ahead, Steve, and have your say. And I'll take a back seat and wait for you to get so tangled up in your rhetoric that you will fall on your feet. And then I'll pick you up and say, hey, this is the way we play. We take care of each other. So go ahead, Steve, and say what you got to say. Okay. Well, I want to say that I don't have much to say for a change. I really don't have much to say because I think you said it all. Thomas, when you said that you read the writing on the wall, but you couldn't call it, you see, until Sally kicked your butt and said, Thomas, if you don't do it, who will? If you don't do it, who will? And so I got my butt kicked too, because she said to me, Steve, if you don't believe in me and you keep bothering me with your insecurity, then go away because I have a job to do. And if I don't do it, who will do it? And I can't be dragged down by you. And so I'm very proud to say that I have a lot to say after all. Because what I have to say is that I had to come to see it her way. I had to come to see that she is the most powerful woman I ever did see because she's got a backbone of steel and she will not kneel to the powers that be. She'll just do what she has to do. And if they don't want to play her way, she'll say, that's fine. I'll just go it alone. Just go it alone. But if others want to come with me, they're welcome. But I will not lead them into hell. I will not be the one who will feed them bullshit. And I will not be the one who will say, you got to do it my way. I will just say, hey, if you like to play the game of love. Hey, if you like to say, what a good day, then let's do it together. Let's have a good day together and let's love each other. And I am here to say that I like to play it that way. I really, really do. And I and Thomas too are so proud of Stephanie because she never gives up her trust on who she is. She never gives up her trust that she is who she is. And she doesn't have to be anyone else because you see, she would never take a knee to the ones who trusted on infamy or the ones who trusted on hatred, you see. She would just say, do it your way, and I'll go away. I'll go away, and I'd rather play by myself, you see, than lose my trust on God energy. And so, for those who have gathered round to see how we can nail it down when the three of us, me and Thomas and Stephanie, work together to feather our nests with the best friends you ever did see in the new community. Then maybe everyone else will finally see that they are the ones who have to go away so that the ones who have learned to play together are here to stay. They're here to stay, and I'm here to stay, and Thomas is here to stay, and we're not going to go away, people, because we trust on God today. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Winnie, for being here today, because the love of God is a love of His trust on all of us today to play together in a happy way and not to have to sit beside the path and say, I wish I had somebody to play with. I wish somebody would come and play. I wish I didn't have to be all alone today, but I'm not going to play the game of hatred. And so if that's the only game they play, I'd rather be alone, you see. I'd rather be alone. But if I could find others who feel the same, then we can be all one, you see. We won't be alone, we'll be all one. And that is the best feeling I've ever had. It's the best feeling I've ever had when I see you here, Winnie. And I say to myself, we have a friend today. We have a friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Got an hour and a half, so I guess we'll close on that. So thank you, Winnie, for being here. And thank you to President Buchanan and Horace Mann, to Steve and Thomas. And thank you all that are tuned in to watch this. Bye-bye. All right.